Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Saturday, June 20th, 2026, and you're listening to Alex's News. In Riverside today, we are looking at a high of 81.0 degrees and a low of 58.1 degrees, which should make for a pleasant Saturday. Moving on to our top stories, we will examine the recent legal action taken by the Federal Trade Commission against WPATH regarding their professional practices concerning gender-affirming care for minors. We will also look at the critical details you need to know as the FDA prepares to reach a decision on the approval of the very first mRNA flu vaccine. Beyond those headlines, we have a variety of other important news items to discuss as well. All this and more coming up on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Good morning. Today we're looking at a major federal lawsuit targeting a leading transgender health organization. Our reporter Ethan has been following this. Ethan, what happened here?
Good morning, Grace. So this past Wednesday, June 17th, just 3 days ago, the Federal Trade Commission filed a federal lawsuit in the North Texas District Court. They were joined by 4 states: Alaska, Iowa, Nebraska, and Texas. The target is the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, known as WPATH. It's an organization founded back in 1979 that positions itself as a leading global authority on transgender health.
And what exactly is the FTC accusing this group of doing?
The heart of it is a claim that WPATH violated the FTC Act. The government says the organization made false, unsubstantiated, and deceptive claims to parents and doctors. The goal, according to the lawsuit, was to promote and sell experimental medical transitions for minors. The FTC and the 4 states allege WPATH deliberately misled desperate families. Specifically, they say the group failed to disclose the side effects of certain pediatric services, including puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones.
When you say misleading claims, what does the government point to specifically?
According to reports from the Wyoming Tribune-Eagle, via the Associated Press, and from Decision Magazine, the government argues WPATH guidelines led doctors to repeat what they call false, misleading, or unsubstantiated statements. That's about the safety and efficacy of these treatments. One especially contested point, highlighted by Decision Magazine, is the claim that gender-affirming procedures lower the risk of suicide. The FTC asserts there's, quote, no competent and reliable scientific evidence, end quote, to support that.
That suicide claim sounds central. How is it being used?
It's framed as a persuasion tactic. The FTC notes that parents are sometimes asked whether they, quote, would rather have a live daughter or a dead son, end quote. The agency views that kind of framing as deceptive because it pressures frightened families. And there's a financial angle, too. The lawsuit alleges WPATH sought to have these treatments covered by insurance, so its leadership could profit financially.
Has anyone from the FTC spoken publicly about their reasoning?
Yes. FTC Chairman Andrew Ferguson emphasized that medical claims have to be evidence-based and truthful. He made his point on X, the social media platform. Ferguson said the FTC will not allow providers to, quote, prioritize profit over children's health and safety, end quote. So the government is really casting this as a consumer protection issue, treating it like any other case of deceptive marketing. That framing becomes important later, because critics question whether that's appropriate here.
Let's hear the other side. How is WPATH responding?
WPATH has strongly denied all of these allegations. The organization says its standards are based on, quote, established scientific standards, expert consensus, and patient-centered values, end quote. They argue their guidelines are designed for individualized care, not a, quote, one-size-fits-all, end quote approach. And they go further politically. WPATH maintains the lawsuit is an act of, quote, pure retaliation, end quote. They describe it as part of a targeted campaign by the Trump administration to undermine gender-affirming care.
Retaliation for what, though? Is there history between these two?
There is, and it's recent and tumultuous. Back in February, the FTC launched a probe into WPATH. The organization tried to block that probe by filing its own lawsuit. Then, in May of 2026, just last month, a federal judge actually ruled in favor of WPATH and temporarily blocked the investigation. WPATH argues that earlier ruling puts them in a strong position to oppose this current lawsuit. They also say it's an attack on the First Amendment rights of professional medical organizations.
So this isn't an isolated case. Is the FTC pursuing other groups too?
That's right. It's part of a wider federal effort. The FTC has also launched investigations into the Endocrine Society and the American Academy of Pediatrics, the AAP. The AAP hasn't been quiet about it. They've criticized these probes as, quote, unduly burdensome, end quote, and, quote, overbroad, end quote, and called them a violation of the First Amendment. So you're seeing several major medical organizations pushing back against the same kind of federal scrutiny.
You mentioned other government reviews. What else is happening around WPATH?
The lawsuit coincides with a review by the Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, that questioned WPATH's standards. But here's an important caveat. The Wyoming Tribune-Eagle notes that major medical groups have criticized that HHS report as inaccurate. So even the underlying review is contested. There's also a congressional dimension. The House Oversight Subcommittee on Healthcare and Financial Services investigated WPATH back in August of 2024.
What did that congressional investigation find?
It focused on the removal of age minimums in WPATH's guidelines. According to Chairwoman Lisa McClain, a Republican from Michigan, WPATH had entirely removed age minimums by September of 2022. And that's notable because, McClain says, the group had previously told Biden administration officials this was not possible. She argues that removal effectively allowed procedures like mastectomies at 15 and genital surgeries at 17. So the age minimum question has been a flashpoint for almost 2 years now.
How has all this pressure affected the organization itself?
The impact appears to have been significant. Decision magazine reports that between January 2023 and January 2024, WPATH's membership plummeted. It dropped from roughly 4,100 members down to 1,590. There was a particularly sharp decline in its U.S.-based membership. So whatever the legal outcome, the organization has already seen a dramatic shrinking of its base over a single year.
Where do state officials stand on the lawsuit they joined?
They've been vocal. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and Iowa Attorney General Brenna Bird said WPATH prioritized ideology and politics over sound science. They accused the group of promoting, quote, irreversible treatments, end quote, on children without solid medical evidence. Alaska's acting Attorney General Corey Mills went further, accusing the group of downplaying long-term harms. So the 4 participating states are firmly aligned with the FTC's framing.
And is there any critique from the academic or legal world?
There is, and it raises a different concern. Lawrence Gostin, a public health expert at Georgetown University, spoke to the Wyoming Tribune-Eagle. He called the suit a, quote, significant expansion, end quote, of FTC authority. His worry is that the agency is using consumer protection law to second-guess clinical medical guidelines, and he suggests that's being driven by a political agenda. So even some experts who aren't defending WPATH are uneasy about the precedent.
Before we go, what is the lawsuit actually asking for?
The lawsuit seeks to block WPATH from future violations of the FTC Act. Beyond that, it asks a federal judge to award civil penalties. It also requests financial rewards for the 4 participating states. So there's both a forward-looking element, stopping alleged conduct, and a financial one. Given last month's ruling in WPATH's favor, this is shaping up to be a lengthy and closely watched legal fight.
Really fascinating and complicated story. Thanks so much for breaking it down for us, Ethan.
My pleasure, Grace. I'll keep following it as it develops.
A big step forward this morning for a new kind of flu shot. Our health reporter Chloe has been following it closely. Chloe, good morning. What exactly happened here?
Good morning, Grace. So just 2 days ago, on June 18th, a federal advisory panel gave a unanimous thumbs up to what could become the first mRNA-based seasonal flu vaccine. It's developed by Moderna, and it's expected to be named mFlusiva, though scientists know it by the code mRNA-1010. The vote was 9-0 in favor, and that really clears a major obstacle on the path to approval.
9-0. That's about as decisive as it gets. Who's behind that vote?
That came from the FDA's Advisory Committee on Biological Products and Vaccines. You'll also hear it called the Vaccines and Related Biological Products Advisory Committee, or VRBPAC for short. What they affirmed is that the benefits of this vaccine outweigh the potential risks, specifically for older adults. Now, their vote isn't the final word, but it sets the stage for the FDA to make its own decision, which is expected by early August. So we're looking at roughly 6 weeks from today.
Let's talk about who this is for. Is it everyone, or just certain ages?
It's actually 2 different tracks based on age, which is a little unusual. For adults ages 50 to 64, Moderna is seeking full approval, the standard pathway. But for people 65 and older, they're pursuing something called accelerated approval, which you can think of as a fast-track license. The committee supported that too, but with a catch I think listeners will find interesting.
A catch? Tell me more about that.
So for that older group, Moderna has to run a large confirmatory study after the vaccine hits the market. We're talking enrollment of up to 800,000 participants, though some reports cite 400,000. That study would stretch across 2 flu seasons, and the goal is to confirm the vaccine really protects the elderly and people with weakened immune systems. They'll be comparing mFlusiva head-to-head against the current special for seniors shots. Basically, regulators want the real-world proof to catch up with the early data.
And what does that early data actually show?
There was a big Phase 3 trial, and this is according to reporting from the Los Angeles Times, Vietnam.vn, and pharmaceutical industry data. That trial involved nearly 41,000 volunteers across 11 countries during the 2024 to 2025 flu season. It found that mFlusiva reduced the likelihood of confirmed influenza-like illness by about 27%, specifically 26.6%, compared to a standard dose seasonal vaccine. And it showed a 47.9% relative efficacy against serious healthcare outcomes.
When you say healthcare outcomes, what do you mean by that?
Good question. That covers the things that really strain the system and the patients, things like emergency department visits, urgent care trips, and hospitalizations. So it's not just about feeling sick at home. The vaccine appeared to cut down on the cases that send people to the hospital. And for a flu shot, keeping older folks out of the ER is really the whole ballgame.
Now, you mentioned that older group needs more proof. So what convinced the panel for seniors specifically?
For the 65 and older crowd, the case rested on what's called immunogenicity data, which is basically measuring the antibody response. They compared mFlusiva to Fluzone High Dose, which is one of those senior-specific shots. And mFlusiva produced superior antibody responses, both at day 29 and again at 6 months. It actually met the superiority criteria across all 4 vaccine-matched influenza strains. Dr. Anna Durbin of Johns Hopkins University described that data as, quote, very compelling, end quote.
Beyond the numbers, why is everyone so excited about the mRNA approach for flu?
It really comes down to speed, Grace. As the Los Angeles Times noted, Dr. Flor Munoz-Rivas of Texas Children's Hospital said this technology puts the U.S. in a better position to respond to emerging strains. And here's the striking part. A Moderna representative told Vietnam.v-n that the timeline from picking a target virus strain to producing the finished commercial product is only 2 to 3 months. That's roughly half the time of the traditional 6-month manufacturing process. So if a nasty strain shows up, they can pivot much faster.
That's a real advantage. But what about safety? That's always the first question people ask.
It is, and the news there is reassuring overall. Both the FDA and Moderna reported no major or serious safety issues. That said, the vaccine did cause more temporary reactions than current flu shots. Things like fever, headache, fatigue, and pain and swelling at the injection site. They showed up at a slightly higher frequency. But Dr. Haley Gans of Stanford Medicine pointed out that these reactions are typical of mRNA vaccines and often signal that the immune system is doing its job.
So those side effects are uncomfortable, but not a red flag?
That's the way the experts are framing it. It's the same kind of temporary soreness and fatigue a lot of people remember from the COVID mRNA shots. It usually clears up within a day or two. The key distinction is between those expected, short-lived reactions and genuine safety concerns, and the panel didn't find the latter. That's a big part of why the vote was unanimous.
Now I understand the road to this point wasn't exactly smooth. What happened behind the scenes?
No, it was actually pretty contentious inside the government. Earlier this year, the application was blocked by Dr. Vinay Prasad, who was then a top FDA official. His argument was that Moderna should have compared this shot to high-dose senior vaccines, rather than the standard dose brands. And this all unfolded under Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who's been publicly skeptical of mRNA technology. Vietnam.vn reported that the Department of Health under Secretary Kennedy cut nearly $500 million in funding for mRNA research projects.
$500 million. So how did Moderna get past that block?
They pushed back on a couple of fronts. First, Moderna pointed out that FDA staff had originally signed off on the study design in the first place. And second, they provided that smaller study we talked about, the one comparing mFlusiva directly to the high-dose senior vaccines. That essentially addressed Dr. Prasad's central objection. Shortly after that dispute, the FDA reversed course and accepted the application. So in a sense, this week's vote is the resolution of a fight that's been brewing for months.
That's quite a turnaround. So if the FDA says yes in August, does that mean we'll see it right away?
Not quite immediately. Even after that expected FDA ruling in early August, there's another step. The vaccine needs official guidance and recommendations from the CDC's advisory committee before it can be widely distributed. That panel decides how it should be used and who should get it. If those hurdles are cleared in time, mFlusiva could actually be available for the upcoming flu season, which is the timeline everyone's hoping for.
And what about kids? Is this only ever going to be for adults?
For now, the focus is adults, but Moderna isn't stopping there. They're already expanding their research to younger populations. There's a separate study planned for this fall for 9 to 17-year-olds. So if all of this pans out, you could eventually see mRNA flu shots for teenagers down the line. It really signals where this whole field is heading.
Big picture, Chloe, why does this matter for the average person watching this morning?
I'd say it's two things, Grace. One, if mFlusiva works as the data suggests, older adults could get better protection against the flu and fewer hospitalizations, and that saves lives every season. And two, this is the first time mRNA technology is really being applied to seasonal flu at this scale, which could change how quickly we respond to outbreaks for years to come. The next few weeks, leading up to that early August decision, will tell us a lot.
Really fascinating stuff, and a story we'll clearly be following into the fall. Chloe, thank you so much for breaking it all down for us.
My pleasure, Grace. I'll keep you posted as that FDA decision gets closer.
Here are some other headlines. Turning our attention to the global stage, things are getting a bit tense as the Pentagon chief conducts a review of NATO allies. It seems the military leadership is trying to keep everyone in line, though some might say they are just playing a game of strategic hide-and-seek with their partners. We will see if this review helps the alliance find its footing, or if it just creates more friction in the gears of diplomacy. Meanwhile, across the pond, Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni is not playing nice. She is firing back at Donald Trump after he claimed she begged for a photo opportunity. Meloni is making it very clear that she was not chasing the spotlight, and her response has been nothing short of a snap decision to set the record straight. It looks like this picture-perfect friendship has developed a few cracks in the lens. In a bit of historic news, the Obama Presidential Center has officially opened its doors. It is a monumental addition to the city, and we can only assume the visitors will find the experience quite uplifting as they explore the legacy of the 44th president. It is certainly a building block for future generations to study leadership and grace. Moving into the fast lane of technology, NVIDIA is making waves as it navigates the complex world of artificial intelligence norms. The company is trying to ensure that as AI evolves, it does not go off the rails. They are essentially trying to program a moral compass into the machine, hoping that the future of computing remains a bright spark rather than a short circuit. It is a high-stakes game of bytes and bits where the company is hoping to stay ahead of the curve. And finally, we move to the courtroom for the trial of Ashraf Hakimi. The football star is facing a grueling match off the pitch as legal proceedings unfold. While he is used to defending his goal during the 90 minutes of a game, he is now tasked with defending his reputation in front of a judge. It is a tough break for the athlete, and everyone is waiting to see if he can kick this legal trouble to the curb or if he will be sidelined by the verdict. That wraps up our quick look at the world this morning. Stay tuned for more updates as these stories develop throughout the day. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Opus 4.8, Gemini Pro 3.1, Gemini Flash 3, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.